Now, how many times have I told you to stop trying to sell nuclear secrets to Saudi Arabia?
Okay. I promise I'm going to stop. All right, can you have him call him up? We're gonna move ahead with the deal.
All right, he left the room. I've been waiting for this day since my 16th birthday.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a good one. You know, it's long past overdue.
Yeah.
I think everybody's ready.
You water the tree of liberty, baby.
Yeah. Blood and tyrants. Let's do it. Let's go. It's been a crazy week that in retrospect, you're like, yeah, of course that's what's going on. Of course this is where we're at. Anyone who thought that Trump was going to like slowly fade out of the national consciousness, you know, after he left the presidency.
Oh no.
They were sorely wrong. He, through hook or by crook, is going to be the headline maker for years to come.
The most interesting thing about this to me is to see all the right-wingers still supporting him. I mean, they have to turn on him at some point unless they are pushing for a civil war, honestly. I don't see any other alternative at this point. Either these guys back down off of the pro-Trump bullshit, or, I mean, they're basically thumbing their nose at the rule of law at this point.
Yeah, and with, which I guess we're going to get into it a little bit tonight, with what just happened this past week with the FBI search warrant at Mar-a-Lago and the documents being taken, and just, I guess, the preliminary reports on what the documents were, what they consisted of, and to hear the right-wing pundits just go out there and make apologia for it. Just try to, just the whataboutisms, you know, the Hunter Biden keeps getting thrown out. His laptop somehow is relevant to Trump having a class of stolen top secret documents. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty incredible. And then, yeah, just the open kind of Civil War talk that's going on, the open, you know, fight back against the FBI talk. I don't think the pundits really care. I mean, you know, this is something like Brian Kilmeade was talking about this past week. Unfortunately, Tucker was on vacation with Tulsi Gabbard filling in for him. But a lot of the other Fox people, I don't know, it sells, though, because it's so fun to think about that and talk about it. I think there's just a lot of LARPers in this country, like maybe you and me, that just like the idea of a good old Civil War. And when we hear people in media talking about it, we get excited. And it sells. It sells. I see that like with Tim Pool. Tim Pool's been bringing it up a lot. Like there's been a few guys that have really gotten on this like upcoming Civil War narrative. And I don't know, it's exciting, I guess. It's titillating, and it's self-perpetuating, I would think, because whatever the level of discontent that needs to exist for there to be an outbreak of actual violence, talking about how we're at that level repeatedly, I feel like it's going to rise. You're going to raise something that maybe wasn't there to begin with, and you're going to start to raise it up to that level. It's just kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I haven't heard anybody really talking about potential civil war since the Donald Trump Mar-a-Lago search happened. They were talking about it sometime back, like around Jan 6th. But it seems like Jan 6th might not be the peak of the violence. It might just be the beginning.
I think so. Like I say, Tim Pool, I kind of sporadically keep up with him. He's been really big on it. He keeps bringing it up every so often. He's brought it up certainly in the context of the Mar-a-Lago FBI ordeal. He was bringing it up before. Apparently, I haven't listened to Rogan in so long, so I don't really keep up with that. But apparently, Rogan was talking about how he felt Tim Pool was right that we may be approaching civil war on a recent podcast. Yeah,
you've got fucking Dan Bongino, an ex-cop, talking about going after the FBI. You've got a story from a few days ago, a Trumper who was at Jan 6th purportedly trying to storm the FBI building in Cincinnati, which we're going to talk a little bit about. Well, let's get right into it. We're already here. So.
Common cause. I will stand arm in arm with any conservative that wants to take down any law enforcement agencies, whether it be municipal all the way up to federal. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Solidarity.
It's such hypocrisy.
You make your allies where you can.
Basically, they're upset that the FBI isn't letting the fucking conservatives do whatever they want.
I know it. They get upset when law enforcement doesn't do its job and violates my rights. They get upset when law enforcement does their job and upholds the Constitution.
Yeah, so, exactly.
It's a minor difference of philosophy, but
common ground, Tony.
Yeah, it is common ground nonetheless.
I'm down. Let's abolish the fucking FBI. So this gentleman's name was Ricky Schiffer. He attacked the FBI office in Cincinnati. He was on Truth Social, where he posted a lot. This is Trump's version of Twitter because he got banned off of the real Twitter. So he created Truth Social. This is all alleged at this point. We don't have any clear details yet. I mean, we have details, but we don't have anything confirmed. So an account with Schiffer's name published a post after the FBI search at Mar-a-Lago telling others, by the way, this is quoting from the Washington Post here. An account with Schiffer's name published a post after the FBI search at Mar-a-Lago telling others to, quote, get whatever you need to be ready for combat. And on Thursday at 9:30 a.m., he wrote another post as he was at the FBI office. He is quoted as saying, well, I thought I had a way through bulletproof glass, and I didn't. If you don't hear from me, it is true I attacked the FBI. The Schiffer accounts on social media lament the state of America and that the 2020 presidential election had been stolen, a driving force among right-wing conspiracists, since Trump incited a mob to storm the Capitol on Jan 6. He appeared despondent that the system could not change to his satisfaction, and that violence seemed to be the only option. No, there won't be a red wave, just like there wasn't in 2020. No one has stopped election rigging, one post said. I do not expect to save America, another post said. I do expect to die trying. So at least he's committed. I mean, I'm kind of proud of him for standing up for the Constitution.
I am too. I've kind of said this about the January 6th people all along. Like, they were right in their reaction to their responsibility as citizens to what they thought was going on. They just happened to not know what was going on. But I mean, yeah, if there are sinister outside forces or inside forces trying to usurp the government, either from the election or currently with trying to go after, the pedophile hunter Donald Trump, then you kind of have a responsibility to put your life on the line. I mean, it'd be no different than putting your life on the line in World War II, fighting against the Nazis for a just cause, anything like that. So it sucks that this, I mean, like, honest to God bravery and sense of patriotism has been co-opted by people, these grifters trying to make a buck. And it's also sad that our education system's just done so bad to where people can get caught up in this poor of a level of thinking.
I think one of the main problems is the education. You're right, especially about media. People think that this is fake news. They don't understand that media journalism is a field of study. There are regulations, hoops they have to jump through to publish these fucking stories. Not everything in the Washington Post or the New York Times is fake news. It's definitely slanted in a pro-American, pro-capitalist sense, but it's not fucking lies like these people believe, because that's what they hear on Fox News and fucking Dan Bongino and Tim Pool,
Steven Crowder.
We have a political party, the Republican Party, who is backing this established big money fake media is basically what it is. It's a propaganda arm of the Republican Party. You've got fucking Sean Hannity texting Trump on Jan 6th and then defending him after the fact. We need to ban the Republican Party before this does turn into a fucking civil war. You know what happened to the Republicans fucking 100 years ago, dude? They'd all been beheaded or strung up. Something would have happened. At least ban the fucking party. It's ridiculous. How long are we going to let this go on, dude?
It's really just a media thing. The language that guy was using in those posts is indistinguishable from what, like, Steven Crowder says on a day-to-day basis. Like,
or anybody,
Patriots, we've got to get our guns together. This is it. We've got to fight back. We've got to do this. We're down to the wire now. We have to. If we don't stand up now, this country's lost for our children in the future. So
it's Tucker. It's all of them.
Crowder with his little shoulder holsters with the two guns in it.
He's a dipshit.
See, I had a shoulder holster that I bought, and I walked around with the gun in it for, I don't know, maybe a year or so in my mid-20s until I realized how fucking stupid it looks to walk around with a shoulder holster. So he never got to that point. He never realized how fucking stupid it looks.
Well, see, when I was younger, one of the first Stephen King books I read was The Gunslinger, and I always wanted to be a badass with a fucking 6-shooter, like a Colt 45 or something, or a Desert Eagle.
Oh, yeah.
Big old holster, and then learn how to draw it super fast. Like, that's a necessary skill in life. Yeah,
obviously.
It is pretty cool.
When the bad guy pulls his gun out, you just shoot the gun out of his hand.
Yeah. Well, that's how you settle any, disputes.
Yeah, also, Tombstone is one of the greatest movies of all time, and Doc Holliday is a fucking beast in that movie.
That's a badass film.
God, it's so good.
Anyway, it was interesting because this was a direct reaction to the raid in Mar-a-Lago and all the fucking Republican propaganda surrounding it, telling people to go after the fucking FBI, and they're going after the FBI.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear the same phrases, the same a characterization of these different organizations that's coming out of the mouths of, like you were saying, Fox News guys, all these independent air quotes guys, Crowder, Poole. It's the exact same words just coming out of his mouth. He's just, his head has been filled with this garbage, and he's taking it to the logical conclusion. So there we go.
What's the next step? Who's he going to tell him to go after next? Trans people?
Maybe.
Liberals?
I mean, they kind of have. They haven't really elevated the volume to a high enough level to where people are going to start following through with it yet.
Yeah, I think they'll back off of the FBI thing pretty quick because it's not going to benefit them in the long run. I think they'll switch gears at some point. They have to drop. If Trump gets indicted, what do you think's going to happen? I mean, God, there's no point in speculating, but it's just we're getting closer, man, ain't we? The fucking doomsday clock is ticking, baby.
Oh my goodness, isn't it?
So let's move into this next segment. We're going to talk about police auditing. Is that what this is?
Yeah. So auditing has been the new thing that I have gotten super. I don't know. The almighty algorithm knows me too well, and it started suggesting these videos, and I have gotten hooked. This is my new favorite thing. God, it could be like Oprah's new favorite thing. Yeah, these guys are
dorks.
Have a very libertarian bent. It could be pretty cringy to watch. Well, we'll go ahead and just play the first clip if you would.
How's it going, sir?
Hey, how you doing, officers?
Good.
That's
Can I
good.
get your
Yeah.
names and badge numbers?
Sure, can I have your ID, please?
No, you can't.
Excuse me.
Have you not heard that before?
I've heard it plenty of times. It's just I'm surprised because, well, my name and my badge number is right here. Okay, you see it?
Tibbets?
Yep,
I
640.
The pen is blocking the number.
Digging the American, what is it called? Like a baklava?
Here is a First Amendment protected activity.
Like the dust protector mask?
But listen, if you violate that in any way and interfere with that,
I'm not violating it. They asked you to leave.
Yeah, but they can't ask me to leave. This is a public library. Can I speak to a supervisor, please?
After immediately showing their disdain for the public and our
All right, that's good.
Long Island.
These guys.
Yeah. They're the best.
I feel bad for the cops. I don't like to feel bad for cops.
These men are American heroes. All right, so auditing. What is auditing? Auditing is going out basically and exercising your rights in a public manner in what's often, I guess, kind of a confrontational manner to ensure that the people working for government, whether they be clerks at a county courthouse, police officers, whatever, understand the laws that they're supposed to be enforcing and respect your constitutional rights. Auditors in general, they're usually, they go out and they exercise their First Amendment rights with filming in public, saying stuff that could be offensive towards people, but wouldn't be considered harassment. You also have like Second Amendment auditors. They're pretty awesome too. These are guys that like will strap an AK-47 to their back and just go strolling through a park. And a cop comes up and they're like, I have a Second Amendment right to carry this. And yeah, and they push the cops, and it's supposed to be an educational thing for everybody, for the police, for the people that watch these videos, so that you understand what your rights are, and so you could teach the cops what they are. Because as we know, cops are always trying to kind of push the envelope back and push back on your personal rights to make their job easier so that they can violate you or whatever. But yeah, essentially it's the open exercise of a right, generally the First and Second Amendment, in the presence of government officials, often police. It also has the added benefit of documenting police behavior so that the officer or department can later be educated as to the constitutional rights of citizens and their role as law enforcement.
So I'm assuming that these auditors are credentialed in some way. They have specific training. They know the laws well, I presume.
That is a thing that could be said. That's a thing that they would say about themselves, yes.
I know. He's a fucking one.
I'm telling you right now, fucking 5 years ago with this shit, he would have been on the fucking ground.
Absolutely.
10, 15, 20 years ago, that motherfucker would be dead. He'd be fucking his teeth if he missed.
Officer Utter may have just
All right, that's good.
Testified against him.
How'd they? What happened here?
The point of an audit, you go out, you would start filming in a public place, for example. This guy, he was filming in a public library, which is a public place, and you do not have an expectation of privacy in public, so it is legal to film. Any public buildings are owned by everybody, so if you're allowed to be there, that means you're allowed to film there. And that's what this guy was doing. He had this police encounter. Oftentimes, you'll end up in these police encounters where the police will violate your rights to some degree or another, and then the person doing the auditing will end up requesting body cam footage, will end up requesting all the information having to do with the encounter. So that's what this guy got in this particular one. He ended up requesting the body cam footage from some of the police officers that illegally and forcibly made him leave the library. And he ended up filing a suit against them. And yeah, so this body cam footage had these two cops that were involved in the incident talking back and forth. 5 years ago, this motherfucker would have been on the ground. 20 years ago, he would have just been dead.
True.
It is true. And I think it's great to have stuff like this out there for the public, for people to hear about it, because this is how they talk about us, when they're speaking to one another. And as cringy as it is to go into a library and just obnoxiously film, like, it is your right. And, these guys are not necessarily, I don't think they're necessarily worried about the right to film in a library, but they're just trying to exercise the rights so that they don't lose them. It's important for people, including police, to know this is something we can do and you can't stop me from doing it.
Usually they don't release the body cam footage.
It seems like it's easier to get body cam footage than I suspected. I mean, once body cam footage, just like anything else having to do with the government that's not classified, is public information. And
Sure.
in most cases, you should be able to just file a Freedom of Information Act request, and all this should be given to anybody that requests it.
They have to actually give it to them, though.
Yeah, so sometimes they'll have like certain holds or stays on it. You'll have to fight it in court, but the default position is that this is public information. This is a public record, and that anyone is entitled to it. And the onus is on the state, if they want to withhold it, to show cause why it needs to be withheld. I mean, they can hold it up and they can make it difficult for a little bit to get it, but more often than not, it will end up being released to the public because it's ours. It's our public record. We paid to have it filmed.
Sure.
It's somebody that we're paying to do that.
It's just interesting. The cop forgot to turn it off, I guess. So that's why they probably can't edit it or really fuck with it once it's recorded, probably in the cloud or something.
Yeah, ideally, that's how these things work. I mean, I guess you just wear it long enough, you kind of forget it's there.
That guy was a douche. God, don't be a fucking asshole in the library. It's everybody's library, dick.
Do it in libraries more often. Good educational value to this.
People are reading books, man. It's a sacred space.
Okay, yeah. So an example of an audit would be like this: video recording police in a public building, courthouse, police station, library, wherever, during a traffic stop, during someone else's traffic stop, during your traffic stop, or any other police engagement. As I was saying, the legality of video recording in public has been challenged numerous times in court, and so far has been very strictly upheld, with slight exceptions. There are certain buildings where certain buildings where video recording is prohibited. In these cases, it has to be posted ahead of time, and there has to have been some sort of actual legislation passed by the state where they show cause why it can't be. There can't be recording going on there. And a lot of these guys have challenged particular things like that. They've went to courthouses that will have a sign that says no recording. They'll say that it's their courthouse policy, and these guys will go in there and record, challenge that because the courthouse does not get to make that policy. They do not get to infringe on people's free rights. That's something for the government to do. They're the only ones that can infringe on our rights.
Well, you're saying it as if it can't change, but it has started to change. Arizona, for example, just passed a ban on filming police within 8 feet after a verbal warning is given. They just passed it last month. Arizona is getting pretty fucking wacky, dude.
There are a few places where they've passed ordinances restricting the extent to which you can film in public or film police in particular, which is what a lot of these have to do with. I don't necessarily have a problem with those. Like, it makes sense during a police stop if the guy is dealing with a DUI arrest or something that you can't get right up in his face, 3 feet away from him and record. But I don't know, 8 foot, it seems more than fair to me. So I don't have a problem with
slippery slope, man.
It is a slippery slope. You just gotta watch your step is all. And that's why you need these brave Americans out there testing the waters and pushing the limit to make sure that we don't slide too far down the slope.
They're the vanguard.
They are.
Yeah. These guys have to be like straight edges, because nobody I know that fucking does illegal shit would be doing this.
That's what my issue is. Like, I would go out there and then they'd pull my record up and they'd be like, "Oh, Mr. Cantrell, we'll find something in your house, in your possession to get you on."
If not, they'll plant some shit
Some old court fee that you forgot to pay or something like that.
Found this 8-ball here. What was this doing here, buddy?
You want to play the next one?
You're wrong. I can videotape him, and I can videotape you.
No, he's a civilian.
What does that mean?
He's a private human being.
So what does that mean?
What do you mean, what does that mean? Have a good day. Carry on.
Why don't you have a good day? There is no...
I just love watching these. They're
Oh,
I can't watch it, dude.
did you just call me a
I could
loser?
do this all. I do this. This is like past few weeks while I'm working. I'll just have this playing in my earbuds all day long.
It's so cringe, man.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I love it.
Jimba, did you just call me a loser?
License and registration, please. What's your ID?
Did you just call me a loser?
You just approached the cruiser after I asked you not to. Do you have an ID on you, please, sir?
Did you just call me a loser?
Not illegal to approach a cruiser.
So can you call your supervisor?
I already have.
Okay, I'll wait
Listen,
for him.
you're very close.
I'll wait for
You
him.
should not walk up to police vehicles.
Why are you walking up to me?
He has to give him his ID, though.
Not if it's not a stop and identify state, no. So there's a handful of states that are stop and identify. Kentucky's not one of them. Unless you're operating a motor vehicle, you do not have to ID yourself. I'll get into this later on. Yeah, so this is another instance of an audit. This guy, I forget the exact context of this conversation, but he was out filming. The cops come up, ask what's going on. The cop ended up walking away back to his vehicle. The guy follows him up there recording, and we see a famous tactic of the police in these audits where they'll get frustrated with the auditor videotaping them, often from a distance, and they'll start walking towards them, telling them that they need to get away from them. Oh, you're getting too close to me. You're getting too close to me, as the cop is walking towards them. This is, I guess, when the point when the cops get frustrated enough that they're trying to find some reason to arrest you, and saying that you're in too close proximity of them puts their safety in danger, so they just walk towards you so that you're very, very close to them.
See, this is what I don't understand about this whole thing, because the cop, it doesn't matter if the cop's right or not about the law. The cop just arrests you, charges you, throws you in jail, and then you have to defend yourself and prove that you didn't commit a crime. He doesn't have to be right. It doesn't matter if you audit him or not. He could just do whatever the fuck he wants to do.
Well, so that's why you have a camera on, and hopefully you're in a state where they require body cams on the police, your local police.
Yeah, but you're going to sit in jail till you fucking go to see the judge, at least get bonded out.
Definitely some people do. Some people will, there's been auditors that have sat in jail for weeks before on disorderly conduct charges, which are, that's kind of like the catch-all term that you get an auditor on, is disorderly conduct, because it's such a vague, amorphous charge that it kind of applies to anything, even though it doesn't really apply to anything at all. So that's what a lot of these guys do. They will challenge the police in the street like this to make sure that they understand that the laws that they're charged to uphold, and these guys will also challenge the police in the courtrooms. There are several big auditing channels that these guys are backed by lawyers, and they will do these things on purpose. They go out and they will challenge police and let themselves get arrested. The guys that would do stuff like this, they're generally a lot more well-versed in the laws and the specificity of what they are and aren't allowed to do. And yeah, they'll have themselves be arrested so that their lawyer can go in and file a civil rights case against the city, county, whatever it is, and hopefully educate these people that way. And there have been a lot of these guys that have gotten big paydays for illegal detainments, violations of the Fourth Amendment, which protects you against unwarranted search or unreasonable search and seizure, violations of your Second Amendment right, which is right to bear arms, violation of your First Amendment right, which is freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And, these guys are acting as members of the press in this instance.
This is what we need to do with all the incels. Just get all the incels and have them go audit the fucking police. I'll give them something to do at least, instead of sitting behind their keyboards all day.
It's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all. And if they end up getting shot, is it really that much of a loss? They weren't going to contribute to the gene pool anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this is an expression. These guys are First Amendment auditors. This is ultimately an exercise of your First Amendment right to freedom of the press. And you were asking earlier, like, what does it mean to be in the press? Are these guys credentialed? That's the great thing about the press, is there is no credentialing. Any organization that calls themselves a press organization can issue their own credentials, and they're just as valid as any other. So we here at Exploding Star Podcast, we can issue our own little cards and give it out to anybody, and it would be just as valid as a card from the New York Times or CNN, in that everything's equally valid.
I don't know how I feel about that. It's got to be some like media organizations that you provide a little bit of accountability to media organizations, or
gatekeeping? Is that what you're arguing for?
maybe.
You want Jeff Bezos gatekeeping the media? Okay, you want to go to the 2A?
How to audit.
Now that you've done, can you look at it and see if he gave us his name, man? I don't think he gave us his name. Look, man, I don't know why you're being difficult, man. If you just cooperated, we'll be out of your hair in about 2 minutes. You know what I mean? That's all it takes. Just a little cooperation. No, man, look, I get you think it's funny. We're just doing our jobs.
I actually find it quite hilarious.
Okay, so, and that's your right, man. I'm just trying to do my job.
You're right.
You know?
Okay. Have a good day.
I'm having a great day.
Okay, well, enjoy the rest of it. Okay. If you want to film, you can back up and film, but if you don't need anything from me, I don't need anything from you. So I'm asking you just to step back. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, man, can I just ask you, can you just go ahead and take off?
No, I'm going to sit right here.
Okay, then I'm going to sit right here.
I'm allowed to sit right here.
I'm allowed to sit here, too.
You're right, you are. But you can't be over here harassing people.
Harassing a public employee?
But you don't need anything from me.
I do. I need your ID. Just so I know, because, man, I don't know that you're a police officer. Right now, you're just wearing the costume.
Leave that man alone. What the fuck is his problem?
All right, that's good.
Sitting there trying to watch videos, man.
Trying to watch his porn in front of a elementary school like any other God-fearing American. And this guy harassing him. So there are a number of different ways to audit, obviously. So we watched the guy that goes into the library. There are people that are very confrontational when the police come, start calling them pigs, tell them to fuck off. There's guys that do kind of the funny ones like this, where you go up and you jokingly use the cop NPC script with some random cop sitting somewhere. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, the important thing is to know the laws of your state. So Kentucky, for example, is not a stop and identify state. Unless you're the driver in a vehicle during a traffic stop, you do not have to identify yourself unless there's suspicion of a crime being committed. Police can come up and ask you, and you can say, no, I choose not to identify, because identifying without reasonable suspicion of a crime would be against your will, and without reasonable suspicion of a crime would be a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights. That's considered an unwarranted seizure. They're seizing your personal information, your personal property, your ID or whatever. So the police will ask, they will lie, they will threaten for information like that, but it's important just to know the laws beforehand so that you know what information you're required to give. And then, just if you want to give that information, you can, but oftentimes in these situations, they don't. It's important to know that suspicion is not a crime. The police will say you're acting suspicious. Suspicion is a highly subjective term. Notify the police that suspicion is not a crime, and you need to ask them, what crime do you actually suspect that I am doing? Just being suspicious, just being out here recording in public is not a crime. It is not indicative of any crimes. Next, we come to what is called reasonable articulable suspicion. So at a certain point in the altercation, you're going to want to leave. You're going to want the cop to leave, and they're going to tell you, no, you need to ask, am I being detained? Being detained is a legal state that you're in where you are not free, but you are not under arrest. So it's a temporary hold placed on you by the state, temporary restriction on your freedom of movement after there has been a reasonable articulable suspicion of a crime for the officer to investigate you. So if you feel the encounter is going somewhere you don't like, that's when you need to ask if you can leave. Then you're being detained. At that point, your Miranda rights kick in. That's when you can stop completely identifying. Now, they may go ahead and seize your property. They may seize your wallet. They may find out who you are at that point. But that's kind of out of your control, because you're you're under the control of the state at that point.
So why should you not give them your ID? The only explanation I could think of is if you have like a outstanding warrant, you wouldn't want to identify yourself.
Yes, I mean, I guess in
for practical
normal
purposes.
circumstance, for practical purposes, I don't know. I mean, if you don't trust the police in general, if you think that they could be trying to cause problems for you, if they could be trying to look for some reason to hold you, I mean, you don't know. I'll use myself as an example here. You don't know how screwed up their records are. You may have had something in the past that was taken care of, and they just haven't updated their records. And, you giving them your name and your information pulls up their faulty records, which could end up potentially getting you in trouble. The reason that the auditors do this is just to make that point, that this is not required information of you. And if you do detain me, if you do arrest me, based on me exercising my constitutional right to not have my property, my information, my effects seized, will end up taking you to court for a civil rights case at that point.
The other thing I'm not clear on is detainment. Now, as Miranda rights kick in, I'm assuming that that's basically the same as being under arrest. They're able to start rifling through your pockets and shit. And of course, if you ask them if you're detaining me, they're going to say yes every time, of course. Unless they're a cop who like actually knows the law and has dealt with this shit before.
Often not. Often a lot of these cops, they don't understand these legal distinctions. And it is, it's quite a lot to learn and to understand. And this is why auditors do this stuff. It's a great teaching tool, right? If a cop ends up getting a civil rights case over something like this, then hopefully they learn then. A lot of these guys end up having conversations. They end up getting departmental policy changes, more education about the rights of citizens in their community and how the cops need to approach them.
Yeah, this shit should really be common knowledge. It should be taught in public education for the safety of the public as well as just upholding constitutional rights.
Yeah, so detainment happens after there's reasonable suspicion, but before probable cause. Probable cause is what they need for arrest. Reasonable, articulable suspicion is what they need for detainment.
That probably falls under the same sort of like time limit scenario.
That's what it is. A detainment has to be brief and cursory, but it is something where if they have suspicion of a crime, and then that's when your Miranda rights would start to kick in, and that's when you would need to start exercising them, because you always need to exercise certainly your right to remain silent around police, because they're not there to help you. They're there to try to arrest you.
Got to get the bad guy, Tony.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different reasons people do this. Some people do it for the educational value of it, and it does have educational value. Some people do it to get paid, son, and some people do it just for the love of fucking with pigs, and I can respect all those. So, but there was one guy, I wasn't able to find the footage of it. There was one YouTube auditor that ended up getting shot and killed for doing it.
No, that's hard to believe.
So be careful. Be careful if you're out there doing that.
There should be some sort of civil penalty for being an asshole, though. I mean, I know that they're doing a job, they're fulfilling a very important role, but some of the stuff they do is just really idiotic and cringy and clearly just to get clicks.
It isn't really all about the clicks anyways. And if you can get your clicks at the expense of the police,
yeah.
What better way to do it? What better way? As soon as I get my legal travails taken care of, we might have some audits to put up.
So when I look at them, they look like humans, but I forget they're cops at the end of the day. Don't deserve our pity.
They really don't. They really don't deserve anybody's pity.
I might add this to my over bloated feed and see if I can find some good ones. They're just so hard for me to watch, man, because I cringe so hard that it's painful for me to watch.
There was one. It wasn't technically an audit. The guy wasn't an auditor. And often the best ones on these channels aren't actual auditors. They're people that are having a police encounter that just happen to pull out their phone and have a little bit of knowledge of the laws and their constitutional rights. The best one, and I swear to God, I've spent all week trying to find it, because I'd listened to it one day while I was working on autoplay, and I haven't been able to find it since. But it was this black dude, and I didn't see it, but his voice was so descriptive and evocative. Like I could see him in my mind's eye. And he's like yelling at the police. And what happened was, I guess he was walking around out in front of his house, and it was like a nice house. And he did not look like somebody that would own that house. He described himself as, a black motherfucker with tattoos and gold teeth out here walking around in front of a house like this. And somebody called the cops on him. They go up there. He pulls out his phone. He says, listen, motherfucker, I'm going to educate you. Let me educate you, son. U.S. Code, United States Code, 72, goes. And it's like, he's explaining all this shit to the cops. And he's like, and the person sharing the video is like, yeah, he's right. This is the code. This is what he was quoting. You see a black man out here with gold teeth and tattoos, and you think this motherfucker don't own his house? We're going to go fuck with him. Now you fucking with me. It was perfect. It was perfect.
The officer's just like, sir, I just asked you how your day was going.
They were really fucking with him. Like they.
Oh, were they?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like they were trying to say that. I guess like he was trespassing or trying to break into the place, and the dude was like taking his trash out. Is what it turned out to be. But he like wouldn't give him his ID, and he wouldn't deal with their shit. He was just like, y'all need to leave. Like you got no reason to think a crime's going on. You just drove by and seen a guy looking like me standing out in front of this house, and you think I must be robbing it.
Well, they have reasonable suspicion if somebody called the cops on him.
I don't know if somebody called the cops or not.
Okay. Either way, it's his fucking property.
It's his fucking property. Fuck off. I don't want to give you my ID. Leave me alone so I can go back inside.
Let me grab a drink and we'll move on here. We're going to talk a little bit more Trump. I need to start stockpiling, but I'm a felon, so I can only stockpile crossbows and shit.
Get some nunchucks.
Nunchucks?
I watched this great video. It was like this martial arts channel, and they were trying to do, it was like, I guess 3 different teachers, martial arts teachers, and they were trying to figure out who was the most Bruce Lee. They had a contest to see who could do like the best Bruce Lee-isms. So they were doing they had one of the pads that will record force, like the joules of force, and they were doing 1-inch punches, see who could do the best 1-inch punch. There was another one, like something with to do with the kick. Bruce Lee would do the 3 kicks in a row. I think it was like even a nickname or some.
So fast.
And then the last one was the nunchuck. Like the guys were throwing ping pong balls at somebody with nunchucks, and you had to be able to like hit the ping pong balls out of the way with your nunchuck. I was just thinking like, man, I need to get some nunchucks.
He would do push-ups with 2 fingers.
That was the other one that they did. The 2-finger push-up where he just does like that one hand just.
Savage.
Jesus Christ. I could not imagine.
He weighed like he's like 130 pounds of solid fucking muscle, dude.
Bruce Lee was a badass.
I wouldn't do nunchucks. I think sword. If I had to do a like handheld weapon, it would be a sword for sure.
Apparently swords are illegal for felons too. So.
What? No, they're not.
They took mine.
Yours had drugs in it probably, Tony.
Probably. Yeah. When I finished that sword, I don't know. I just looked like such a fucking weeb. I had like PVC, and then I would wrap the PVC in like rubber hose, and then I would hang it from a tree, and I would just sit out there forever, like practicing my cuts and trying to make a clean cut all the way through. Like how, like in Kenjutsu, they have the rolled rice mats, and you have to be able to cut clean slice all the way through it. And so I'm out there with my longsword practicing.
I always used to fantasize about like what he did in Bloodsport. He tied his leg. Remember when his master ties his legs to the tree and makes him do the splits? Because I was never flexible, and I always wanted to be able to do the splits. But I was always fantasized like maybe I could withstand the pain. It'd be worth it if I could just do the splits afterward. Jean-Claude Van Damme could just do the splits naturally. He I don't think that works. I think you'd be permanently injured if you did that.
Yeah, if you did it, just like that.
Yeah.
How actually though. We'll have to, as maybe for another time, best martial arts weapons. Like, well, if the Civil War comes and frickin' Chuck Schumer does actually come and take all our guns, what would be the best martial art weapons to have in the Civil War? Yeah, I don't know, though. I mean, swords just look so cool, though, right?
You can block projectiles with them.
I think for me, the big question would be like, do you go full weeb and get a katana, or do you go full amp guard and get like a longsword? Like
that's a good question. Sword. I think a rapier is probably your best bet, honestly.
A rapier?
Yeah, because you're not sword fighting somebody else. You're trying to kill somebody. You want something light and wieldy.
I guess so, yeah. You just want something you can flick out and like Princess Bride style. Just
not just the
thrust.
The ones with the edge, like a real rapier with an edge.
Okay, so I'm thinking of like an epee or a foil, I believe. A rapier, yeah. It's kind of has like a slight curve, single edge, right?
Yeah. A nice and long one is what you want, man.
Anyways, back to Donald Trump.
Back to real important issues that matter to people that aren't us.
So, in light of the most recent FBI search, the raid, as some are calling it, I don't know. I hear some people refer to it as a raid on Mar-a-Lago.
How many tear gas canisters did they fire into that place, I wonder?
Oh, how many dogs did they shoot? Between 5 and 30, how many dogs did they shoot? I bet the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago, they did not leave as much of a mess as they did when they come here. I bet they didn't unplug his refrigerator either. Just guessing.
It says right here in the manual, we have to unplug the refrigerator before we
unplug the fucking refrigerator. And we got to find this. Does he have any swords here? We got to get these swords, get them out of here. This guy cannot have these in his possession.
Those assholes were playing with the sword. Like, this is cool, man. I'm going to take it. I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to take this is cool, man.
Oh, makes me so angry. So anyways, there's been a lot of, in the context of this most recent raid, what we've kind of learned about it, that these could be somehow nuclear documents, whatever that means, and that this potentially could have something to do with Saudi Arabia. I wanted to talk about Kushner and Trump's, Jared Kushner, who is Trump's son-in-law and Donald Trump former president, his connections with Saudi Arabia over the years. And an interesting deal that he had been trying to push through for a very long time, and it seems to have at least partially passed as of just a few months. Not passed, not the deal he was trying to do, but something has worked out between the Trump organization, the Trump family, and Saudi Arabia just as of just a couple months ago.
I remember this connection with Kushner being talked about during Trump's presidential run, but it didn't really get much coverage at the time. I imagine it probably will come back up now, though.
Yeah, Trump was really great at employing the sensory overload method of dealing with scandals. He would just he would just have so many different scandals going on at one time that you couldn't ever pay attention to any one of them because you're trying to cover every single one of them.
They didn't seem that bad comparatively to the other scandals.
Yeah. And of course, like, who's going to investigate them? You know, when he's the president, like, people could, but it would be much more difficult. Go ahead, play the first clip, please.
As president, Donald Trump built ties with Saudi royals. One person was usually in the room, his son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner. Like Trump, Kushner arrived at the White House as a businessman with no foreign policy experience. But he quickly became a critical surrogate for Trump abroad and the architect of much of the administration's Middle East strategy.
We hope that this will start an even more historic journey for the Middle East and beyond.
On the campaign trail, candidate Trump took a harsh line on the kingdom.
We protect Saudi Arabia. Why aren't they paying?
He attacked Hillary Clinton for her ties to a country he called a criminal enterprise.
These are people that kill women and treat women horribly, and yet you take their money.
But as president, he charted a different course with the country and its leaders, King Salman and his son, Crown Prince and de facto ruler Mohammed bin Salman.
We really have a great friendship, a great relationship.
Just 2 months into office, Trump welcomed Mohammed bin Salman, then the deputy Crown Prince, to the White House for an Oval Office meeting and formal lunch. It's believed to be the first time Kushner and the Saudi royal, often referred to by his initials, MBS, met in person.
So a lot of this is coming from this is 2019 report from the House Oversight Committee. This is a whistleblower report that was documenting a lot of Trump's early legal entanglements and questionable activities regarding the Saudi royal family and the Saudi business deals. Just to give a little bit of background context, pre-presidency, back in the early 90s, 91 specifically, Donald Trump, as always, was perpetually on the verge of bankruptcy with his numerous schemes, hawking stakes and fake universities. And seems he's had the Saudis, not MBS, but other members of the Saudi royal family seem to have been there for him to do it, to infuse cash into his empire, to buy something from him, make major purchases from him, for him to be able to pull himself out of bankruptcy or at least pay off his creditors when he's in a bad spot. So there's this one fellow, Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, that purchased Trump's yacht, the Trump Princess. What a trashy name for a frickin' yacht. You're going to name it.
He has a daughter. Hey, Dad, that's my name.
That's I could not imagine having a boat and calling it the Cantrell Princess. So this guy bought Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, purchased Trump's yacht, the Trump Princess, when Trump was $900 million in debt. Again, in 1995, Talal bought the Plaza Hotel for $325 million, when another time that Trump was in extreme debt.
Bin Talal, this was crazy. I didn't realize this connection to Bin Talal, because he's very famous. Like, he's popular as fuck on Twitter and shit. There's a post. I mean, him and Trump went back and forth on Twitter multiple times. Bin Talal was an enemy of MBS, because Bin Talal was a rival to potentially take the crown from MBS. When MBS came to power, he threw Talal in prison and basically made him pay billions of dollars to get out of prison. Here's a tweet. I don't remember which tweet this was, but him and Trump went back and forth, and then Trump's kissing fucking MBS's ass. He takes all this money from Bin Talal and then he's talking shit about him. So this is the run-up to the Trump presidential race. Bin Talal tweets at the real Donald Trump, "You're a disgrace, not only to the GOP, but to all America. withdraw from the U.S. presidential race as you will never win. Trump replied, I don't remember what he replied exactly, but there was this back and forth. All the while, Trump took fucking hundreds of millions of dollars from this guy to bail out his fucking shitty businesses.
Yeah, well, seems like the guy's maybe got a bit of an ego like Trump. They like shit talking and throwing mud at one another. Regardless, they certainly had some cash moving back and forth between one another in the early and mid 90s.
Yeah, bin Talal is like the grandson of the Al Sayud, like the original Al Sayud guy.
Guy's got money, and at the very least, around this time, Trump would have realized that there is an incredible amount of money in the Saudi royal family, and I need to see if these guys want to start buying some CBD.
Bin Talal is purported to be worth some $400 billion still after MBS
Christ.
Robbed him.
Oh, poor guy. He got robbed.
I feel so bad.
You poor thing. Probably eating ramen noodles tonight.
I should also say he's like one of the, if not, he was like the largest shareholder of Twitter as well. And he has a bunch of interest in
really?
U.S. Yeah. He was the guy who was going back and forth with Elon over the Twitter deal. He was talking shit about Elon.
Good. Somebody needs to. So when Trump began his final run for president, I say final because obviously he'd run several times prior to this last time, it was revealed he had 8 separate companies that were specifically formed for dealing with Saudi Arabia. He would also repeatedly brag on the campaign trail how he loves Saudi Arabia. They spend 40 to 50 million on his apartments. How could he not? Of course, this was juxtaposed to him talking about how terrible Saudi Arabia was in the context of Hillary Clinton and how she made deals with them, but then he loved them when he would make deals with them, and they would buy stuff from him.
He set up 8 companies. They all had Jeddah in the name of the company, which is like the second largest city in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so that was he may have had more companies, but there was 8 separate companies that whoever was auditing this list of companies could tell that this was specifically for dealing with Saudi Arabia because it has the name of a Saudi city in it. And apparently that was something Trump liked to do, whatever country he was dealing in. He would just name the companies that were dealing in that country off the city or province or whatever where he was specifically trying to get something done. So in this case, he was trying to get a Trump Tower built in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah, the city in Saudi Arabia.
You know what Trump reminds me of? He reminds me of like myself when I was like 16 and I thought I was a hustler. He thinks he's a fucking hustler. He's like talking shit about, he would make a deal because he's all about the deal. He would sign a deal with fucking Hitler and then be talking shit about the Nazis behind, you know what I mean? He doesn't care.
Oh, yeah, not at all. Yeah, as long as they give him money, that seems to be the only thing he's really concerned about is getting more money for some reason. So yeah, it was also around this time that the Saudi lobbying organization set up a conference in New York, renting out rooms in the Trump. So right now we are pre-election. Trump is running. This is when the Saudi lobbying organization set up a conference in New York, renting out rooms in the Trump hotel to the tune of $270,000, which at the time raised serious ethics concern. If only those were as far as the ethics concerns went. And realistically, like $270,000, it's really not that much. But I know it was reported on at the time, and it was odd that they were spending that kind of money and they were reaching out to Trump as much as they were. And it did seem, even at the time, and certainly in retrospect, that Saudi Arabia seemed very intent on setting up a relationship with Trump and the Trump family.
Yeah, as he's running for president. It's not surprising. It's a little odd that nobody, like, there's no ethics committee overseeing this shit.
Yeah, it was definitely odd.
Saudi Arabia, like, rents every room in Trump's hotel and then, we don't actually need these. You can rent them out. Do you know what
the lobbying organization was for, incidentally? All right, so in particular, they rented out Trump's hotel. This lobbying organization was a group of, a group of veterans. And this is completely a made-up organization. It was a group of veterans that were lobbying to have a law rescinded that would allow victims of 9/11 to sue Saudi Arabia, because all the guys that flew the planes on 9/11 were, I think most of them at least, were Saudis. And Saudi Arabia, I don't even know why they would care. It's not like they're paying any of this shit out anyways. But I guess it would just be a PR thing for Saudi Arabia. Like, they don't like the look of being successfully sued for having a part in 9/11. But yeah, it's really weird. Like, what a strange thing. A group of veterans just getting together and, you know what, we need to make sure that people can no longer sue Saudi Arabia. Like, I've got a feeling that's not real.
You know what that's called, Tony? Democracy.
What's that? Democracy. AstroTurf democracy. And so now we get to the crux, the main part of what this House Oversight Committee paper was about, the IP3 nuclear deal. You want to go ahead and play this clip, please?
Administration, as well as top lawyers who raised red flags over this plan. The two concerns here are this. One, if the White House, if any White House wants to transfer nuclear technology to any country, they need congressional approval. That doesn't appear to have happened here. And number two, there was a conflict of interest here because Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor, who appears to have spearheaded this effort on this plan, he worked for a firm called IP3 who tried to push and promote the building of nuclear reactors in Saudi Arabia. This firm, run by retired generals, would then have a financial interest to see these nuclear reactors built. Even after Michael Flynn was fired, though, this plan continued to move forward. Only last week, the president met with executives of nuclear power companies, allegedly over this issue.
Shayna, so that firm that's sort of in the center of this reported this.
Okay, so we'll start off at Trump transition period. So this is the point after which Trump has been elected president, but prior to the inauguration. After Trump wins the election, a delegation of top aides to Prince Mohammed, including Khaled Al-Falil, terrible trying to pronounce these names, Khaled Al-Falil is the Minister of Energy and chairman of the state oil company of Saudi Arabia. They promised to spend $50 billion over 4 years on defense contracts and urged Trump to come to Saudi Arabia in person. So I kind of view this period as Saudis chumming the water. You've got Trump, who's like this big, dumb orange carp that's ready to bite on anything. And the Saudis start promoting their plans on spending billions of dollars. Trump, having not put his businesses into a blind trust, as is the norm, per the emoluments clause. Not that it really mattered anyways, because he was able to use his son-in-law as a surrogate. But Trump wanting to further his business, he was primed to be reached out to by foreign governments wanting to spend a lot of money. January 1st, 2017, IP3 leaders, which consist of former generals and admirals, including Michael Flynn, like we heard in the clip, and business leaders present a plan to Trump for what's called the Iron Bridge Program, which is often referred to as the Middle East Marshall Plan, for creating long-term government commercial partnership with Saudi Arabia. Much of the later half of January, the week and a half after Trump's inauguration, was spent pushing this plan and arguing with many government officials outside the Trump administration that pointed out that this was clearly illegal. So yeah, this organization, the Saudis had reached out to the Trump team. They'd also reached out to this IP3, which is this group of former government officials and business leaders, and they are trying to get this deal passed whereby they would set up this private-public partnership with Saudi Arabia where they would be able to start buying nuclear technology from the U.S. The plan included building 40 nuclear power plants for Saudi Arabia using U.S. technology. Now, we obviously have very strict rules on the proliferation of our technology, as well as international regulations that we have to follow. And it is not up to the president. It's not at the president's discretion to just sign this away and to just pass this deal, which is what I guess they were trying to get him to do, or certainly what Trump seemed to be trying to do.
I think the members of the NPT, all the signatories, have to vote to allow a new member to join the nuclear treaty, I believe. You can't just sell your technology. The other members have to allow it.
Yeah, that between our own laws and a number of different international treaties, different other international organizations that kind of hold purview over the proliferation of any nuclear technology. And I'm assuming it's a pretty slow and tedious process, and you certainly wouldn't want a theocracy. If we just start selling fucking nuclear tech to Saudi Arabia, Russia can start selling, just give it to Iran. You know what I mean? Yeah. January 31st, 2017. So this is a week and a half after Trump actually becomes president. White House lawyers are already raising concerns that what General Michael Flynn, Trump, Kushner, and others in his circle are doing is very likely illegal in regards to this deal. Lawyers at the time are repeatedly telling Trump and his advisors that the plan cannot go through. Trump says, yes, it can. General Flynn, in his non-governmental capacity as a leader of the IP3, is hosting a meeting with funding backers at the White House. He is told that this venue is highly inappropriate. So he is using the backdrop of the White House. This is 2 weeks after Trump gets in. Not even 2 weeks.
Dude,
10 days.
Flynn has got his fucking dirty ass hands in every bit of illegal shit going on in the White House.
So February is spent with behind the scenes wrangling by those intimately involved in this deal, meeting with Gulf states and arguing with lawyers and the National Security Council. So this was a constant back and forth. I mean, this is why we have this report. It was the first year apparently in office for Trump was just a constant barrage of him trying to push through this deal and do everything he could, and constantly being told no, that he was not allowed to sell nuclear secrets to foreign governments because he liked them, because they were going to buy a hotel from him or something, and he just did not like it.
They was going to put his name on the fucking nuke.
Yeah, and that's all he would want. You know that. Just
the last thing you see before your whole country dies.
Just
Trump's
Trump
name.
in big fake gold letters, just gold spray paint.
You can have the tech, but the warhead has to be gold.
So this is March 2019. Despite orders to halt all work on the IP3 plan and numerous new investigations, plans move forward for this massive investment. So the Trump team, his Kushner and his staffers, keep going ahead, acting as if they're not being told by all these lawyers that this is illegal, that you can't do this. And they go ahead and this is what he's spending his time doing. This is what we're paying him to do. This is what he spent his time doing as president, was going ahead with this illegal deal that would just help a bunch of rich people. Prince Mohammed bin Salman at this time travels to meet Trump and Kushner in the White House, which is kind of a historic thing at the time. He doesn't really get out of the country much, and it was a pretty big deal for him to do that. But he did that for his boy Trump and Kushner. There continues to be constant NCS, which is National Security Council, reports about, quote, gross mismanagement, criminal and ethical violations in regards to the Middle East Marshall Plan, which is the plan that the IP3 was pushing. Towards the end of March, General McMaster informs NSC staff to stop working on the Middle East Marshall Plan. It is done. Stop it. You can't do it anymore. This is done. It's over with. The plan moves ahead at this point without the National Security Council oversight. So if National Security Council won't help us do it, we'll just do it without the National Security Council. Trump brings it up against the advisement of many with other Middle Eastern countries and Egypt. Trump is reported to have told Israeli Prime Minister at the time that if we don't sell Saudi Arabia nuclear reactors, someone else will. So given the overwhelming pushback, it seems that all official mention of the plan dies down for a while. We come back at November. The plan comes back to life as Saudi Arabia begins to solicit bids internationally for the reactor project. Apparently at this time, Saudi Arabia felt like the plan was falling through, or felt like the U.S. was dragging its feet too much, so they open up bids internationally to start building the stuff, which kind of gets the ball rolling again in the U.S. So January 2018, the Brookfield Business Partners, a subsidiary of Brookfield Asset Management, buys Westinghouse Electric. Westinghouse Electric is a bankrupt nuclear services and energy provider listed as being a key part of the IP3 plan. Why the plan was reliant on a bankrupt nuclear services and energy provider is kind of strange until you realize, like, oh, well, somebody else can just buy it and then they can use that as the venue through which they do this technology. It's not right. It's not a deal that would be open for the public for any nuclear provider to solicit their best bid. Like, they set it up to where it was this company that they would be able to buy so that they would reap the profits of this.
Yeah, it would be like one of Trump's family members becomes the owner.
Oh, it's funny you said that. Yeah, so Westinghouse Electric is a bankrupt nuclear services and energy provider listed as a key part. So later that year, Brookfield Business Partners, which is owned by Brookfield Asset Manager, so they buy Westinghouse Electric, and then they buy a partnership stake in 666 Fifth Avenue, which is Jared Kushner's building. This is where Jared Kushner operates his Affinity Partners private equity firm. So yeah, right here we show, I mean, that's the link, right? Brookfield and Affinity are basically co-owners. They operate together, they're partners, and together they own Westinghouse Electric, which is the prime, I don't know, what do you call it? They're the prime venue through which these nuclear technologies are going to be sold and the means by which the profits will be reaped.
Yeah, they have the infrastructure and the personnel and whatnot.
Yeah. And like I say, this is not a deal that was open for the public. This was not setting up a trade deal to share technologies between two companies that would be open to any U.S. company. This was specifically for companies that would have a material benefit for Trump's family, and only them.
So Kushner goes to Brookfield, says, you guys buy this nuclear power plant company that we have listed in this deal we want to get pushed through.
Yeah, this bankrupt company.
In exchange, I'll sell you a stake in my bullshit holding company that I operate out of 666 Fifth Avenue because I'm Keanu Reeves from Devil's Advocate. Was it Keanu Reeves? I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, it was Keanu Reeves, I believe so. The first half of 2018, so that was January 2018. During the first half of 2018, Saudi Arabia begins lobbying efforts, again, directed at Trump, to approve the sale of nuclear technologies, and the administration considers permitting the sale despite the clear legal and ethical impediments. During this time, Prince Mohammed makes a last-minute trip to New York, again, coming to the U.S. specifically to see Donald Trump, where he stays in the Trump Hotel for 5 days, spending so much in the hotel that he boosted the hotel's revenue by 13% that quarter. Once again, emoluments, anybody. This is
baller.
You are supposed to get any businesses out of your name when you become the president. Jimmy Carter had to sell his peanut farm, people. Jesus.
I don't think it matters. MBS would have spent that money either way. He just spent it at Trump's place to help because that's his buddy.
He heard he had some awesome steaks there. That's what I hear. So later that year, this is when Jamal Khashoggi is killed in October. Kushner reportedly gives advice to Prince Mohammed on how to weather the media storm. Months later, the Trump administration fails to issue a report on the killing of Jamal Khashoggi to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So Trump just kind of from the get-go, he's basically acting as the U.S. PR wing for the Saudi government during this whole debacle. He wants to keep...
Washington Post is fake news, Tony. Trump's on board with killing journalists.
Yeah, there's some other parts that I'd left out that they weren't really substantiated. They were just people in the report saying what they heard these people like Kushner say at the time. Apparently, someone had heard Mohammed bin Salman say that he had Kushner in his pocket, so he wasn't worried about the U.S. repercussions from the Jamal Khashoggi killing, and there's some other really evocative statements like that, but there's not really any sources for it, so I didn't include it in here. But if you are interested, it's really fun to read, and I like to pretend like it's all true, and it probably is.
Something's going on. There's something else at play here. MBS probably has like Ivanka sex tapes. He probably fucked Ivanka. Jared Kushner's like, dude, no, don't release the tapes. I'll do anything.
If he wanted to, he could fuck anybody. He's so wealthy. You got that kind of money, yeah, you do whatever you want. Ivanka,
he doesn't look bad for a fucking 100 billionaire, trillionaire. Some people say he's worth $1 trillion.
Yeah, he put Elon and Jeff Bezos both to shame. The report ends in early 2019. Early 2019, the president is receiving letters from numerous congressional committees urging him to stop attempting to provide nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia. This has been like years where they're just like, please, this is illegal. You have to stop. You have to stop talking about this with other countries. You cannot do this. We are not going to okay this. Please
That's not
stop.
the right tone. You're not using the right tone. You have to do it like talking to a child. Listen, Donald.
Yeah. You can't be doing this. I'm telling you. I'm not going to tell you again. You cannot do this.
Now, how many times have I told you to stop trying to sell nuclear secrets to Saudi Arabia?
Okay. I promise I'm going to stop. All right, can you have him call him up? We're gonna move ahead with the deal.
All right, he left the room. The deal's back on.
It probably was exactly like that. So they stopped urging him to stop attempting to provide nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia. In response, Trump repeatedly meets with Saudi officials and U.S. business leaders about sharing nuclear technology.
He's obsessed. What is his deal? What's the deal with this shit?
He didn't give a shit. He just, in the face of everyone telling him this, you cannot do this. You do not have legal authority. He doesn't give a fuck. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to pretend like nobody's saying a damn thing. And of course, with the recent revelations about what was found in Mar-a-Lago, he may not have cared about stopping talking about this because he didn't plan on doing it in his capacity capacity as president. He may have planned to do it in his capacity as former president or as just a private individual. So they wouldn't, the National Security Council or whoever wouldn't have any oversight on him then. It would just be, I guess, federal courts at that point. And I guess maybe he was thinking he could skate past that.
We're not 100% on if it was nuclear stuff yet. That's just speculation at this point, I think. It is verified that he did have the highest clearance level of documents in Mar-a-Lago. And those documents are not supposed to even be read or looked at outside of the White House, basically. Also, he's not able to declassify those himself.
And even if he were, because not all the documents were that top secret. Some of them he could have declassified himself, but he didn't. And if he did declassify them, there would be a paper trail, and he would be able to point and say, hey, have my lawyer pull up file section A3, and you'll see where these were declassified, and then it wouldn't be that big a deal. But he didn't do that, so here we are. So early 2019, this is about the time where the deal just completely seems to break down. After it become clear, after being told for a couple years that he could not unilaterally violate national and international laws to sell nuclear technology, he seemed to have given up on it a little bit. That's how the 2019 whistleblower report ends. Couple things to point out after that. Of course, over the years of Trump's presidency, Jared Kushner spent more time traveling to the Middle East than anywhere else, both in his function as White House advisor and as a private businessman. During this period, we heard about the numerous potential ethics violations involving Trump and the Saudis in particular, them holding functions at his properties and spending exorbitant sums of money that would have went directly to Trump's pockets. So now we come to the most recent update prior to the Mar-a-Lago raid. 6 months after leaving office, Jared Kushner's firm, Affinity Partners, finally receives a $2 billion payment from the Saudi prince.
For what?
We're not exactly sure what this... I guess it was as a money management firm is what he's running, and the money was given to him by the Saudi prince under the auspice that he was going to
invest it for Saudi Arabia.
It for him for Saudi Arabia. Yeah. This was done against the advice of the Saudi Public Investment Fund. So, they have a council just like I guess most places would have that nominally have some oversight over how public monies are spent. Of course, it's not really public monies. And they would do their research on all these different organizations that they're going to be sending money out to. And I believe I'd read the actual Saudi Public Investment Fund has basically like $500 billion in it. So it could be the $2 billion could be a prelude to a lot more. I don't know, but they definitely move a lot of money around. The Saudi Public Investment Fund did not think that investing in Kushner's Affinity Partners asset management fund was the correct way to go. So they do point out that the management of the fund is incredibly inexperienced between Kushner and the other people we've hired, that they don't really have the experience to operate with these sums of money like some of these other firms would, some of the other hedge fund managers would. There seemed to be incredibly high fees associated with managing the fund. Apparently they were described as almost extortionate level fees for managing this money, which seemed really odd for a new fund with a very inexperienced team. There was the possibility that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia would bear the bulk of investment and risk with the fund. So basically it's just their money in there, or
mostly theirs. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like they were just making a big payment. Yeah. And they generally found the investment firm to be, quote, unsatisfactory in all aspects. Yet Prince MBS overrode their suggestion to not invest in this fund and went ahead and gave Jared Kushner this $2 billion to manage for him. So could the nuclear documents, if that's what they were, that were stolen by Trump, have anything to do with technologies that the Saudis have been looking for? Could it have anything to do with these big payments that, the Trump family has been receiving? They've been getting money from MBS for years now, smaller payments, and now they just got this giant $2 billion payment. Are these correlated in any way? I'm certainly not the only one that's seen this. Obviously, there's a lot of people that have pointed this out.
The reason it doesn't make sense to me, maybe it does, and I just don't understand the situation fully, but why wouldn't Trump just photocopy the shit, give it to MBS, and then return the documents to the Justice Department? He doesn't need the originals. And for two, the Saudis don't want the fucking documents on how to build a reactor. They want the technology, they want the employees, they want everything associated with a company that already is in this business, I presume. That's what this bankrupted energy company was for.
Maybe the bankrupted energy company would build the reactors for them. I don't know. Maybe there's a documentation on just how to do crucial parts of the refining the uranium or something, and that's what they're ultimately needing to do it themselves.
Maybe. Well, I'm sure what Saudi Arabia is after is a bomb. That's what every country wants. It seems like, I mean, maybe that's what Trump was trying to give them. If Trump was trying to steal the plans to the bomb to sell to Saudi Arabia, that's pretty fucking ballsy, dude.
So amazing. I hope that's what it was. I really do. That would be so incredible, because I can't wait to hear Tucker Carlson come out and say, you know what? Saudi Arabia, why shouldn't they have a nuclear bomb? Why shouldn't we? You know, we did the non-proliferation thing for so long, trying to get bombs out of the hands of these different countries. I think we should start putting them into giving more theocrats the ability to end the world. That's what we need right now. That's what we need.
He is pretty dumb and pretty arrogant. That is something he might try to pull. But why didn't he just photocopy him and then return the box to the DOJ?
I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe these are I don't know. But Trump, you never do know. That's the thing. This is what's so sly and sneaky about Trump. He does such crazy shit all the time that you never know. It reminds me of kind of like the Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, where it's like, always do the most chaotic things so that your enemies never know what you're going to do next.
Right. Live life to the fullest, man. Grab life by the horns. Make as much money as possible. You're not going to live forever. Fuck it. Who cares if the world gets nuked once you're dead? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Imagine all the money you'll have right now. Who cares if your grandkids live in a post-apocalyptic wasteland?
They'll always remember the name Trump.
They will. That is one way to go down in the history books. You know, who the hell remembers Rutherford Hayes? Who gives a fuck about some of them other stupid presidents? You know, Polk, James Polk. Fuck James Polk. He'll never go down in the history books. But Trump, he's the guy that made Fallout come true. It's Fallout 4. That's where, you know, we'll have to go into an ark. We'll spend a couple generations underground. Then we'll come out and he'll be the big bad of the video game that we're all living in.
It's amazing to me that this Saudi Arabia deal was going down at the beginning of his presidency and it didn't get more investigation. I guess there was so much other shit that he was accused of.
Yeah, I don't know. I really do think it was just, it was kind of like sensory overload. Fuck, man. His first year in office, he had so many scandals going on. Like how do you split up the resources? How many people do you have to investigate the president on all these different crimes between his tax dealings and his freaking Russia shit and him having you investigate his political adversaries, and you got to investigate his connection with Saudi Arabia? And
it's pretty sick, man. It's pretty sick. He's such a grifter that he had a grift all set up. He had a scam all set up for his first fucking day in office. He was already in the works to like sell fucking nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia unilaterally without congressional or international approval. It's pretty baller. I don't know if I'd be on my hustle that hard.
And wasn't even hiding it. He was having the meetings in the White House. Like right out in the open. Fuck you. How much money are you going to give me? Had his feet up on the Resolute desk. Just, yeah, buddy. How much money do you think I'm going to make on this one? What do you need? You need classified documents. You need the names of our spies. You need the code to the nuclear football. I don't give a shit. How much money are we talking?
Dude, Michael Flynn is 100% going to be like the general of the fucking fascist army once the fascists take over.
Are there any good generals, like super lefty hippie generals?
No. Are you out of your fucking mind? Not in the U.S. Army.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like
maybe the People's Liberation Army.
Like a general that like has his soldiers listen to like Edward Said, know who Michael Parenti is or whoever. We need to get these guys on our side. We need a couple lefty generals. Just so you know, this is why I play Rome 2 so much. So that I can go head to head in a general v general battle. I know my troop movements.
Organizing. All right, guerrillas.
To the left flank.
Listen, I want all of you to organize into a phalanx.
Exactly. Shield balls, archers, fire arrows.
Fire at the helicopters dropping bombs on you.
Yeah.
I have a question in chat real quick. Let me read this out. Not being from America, he's from Queensland, Australia. Dark Sage here. I hear on the news often people say the Republican Party is not the party of Abraham Lincoln anymore. Where I live, we studied about him in school, and I tend to disagree with that narrative. From what I understand for his day, would Lincoln have not been considered a populist Republican? I know it is a strange question to ask, but I hear it all the time over here in the news. I I think what I would say is populism wasn't really a thing back then. There was a very elite, white, rich class that ran the country in Abraham Lincoln's day. So, they talked about, when I think of populism for that day and age, I'm thinking like William Penn, maybe, as far as like actual elites who were populist. There wasn't really a sentiment in the ruling class of populism at the time, the way we see it now.
Yeah, I don't know. I've honestly never even really thought about it. Certainly the politics were so different back then, and the concerns. It's hard to really, I guess, make corollaries to modern day politics and modern day, uses of these definitions, and certainly modern day, trying to find the lines of Republican Party, Democratic Party back then and now. I think mostly back then it was like you just run on a make the union great again, and we got to keep cholera out. That's all people cared about. I guess you were a populist if you could keep people from dying from dysentery.
Lincoln wasn't a strict abolitionist. He was willing to negotiate. He wasn't going to free the slaves right away. He was just talking about maybe moving the country in that direction. It was actually the South that seceded. And also, I should point out that this is a talking point in Republican circles in the United States. This whole narrative about how the Republicans are actually the non-racist party, which is not the case in this country at all. There's a lot of reasons why that is. The party sort of switched at a certain point in the history of America. But yeah, Lincoln was definitely more progressive for the time compared to like the Whigs.
Especially at that point in time. Like, I think the entirety of U.S. politics really revolved around the North-South split and the politics that ended up becoming the politics of the Civil War.
He's asked a lot of questions about populism. Like, the term is very nebulous.
I don't know what the sentiment of the country was about the war, because I know, like, Lincoln, for example, he was pretty hard-nosed about not letting the Confederacy fully secede, whereas somebody like General McClellan, who was one of Lincoln's generals at the time and ended up running for president, he felt very much like, the Confederacy wants to go do their own thing, that they could do their own thing. But I don't know, like I could see that being a populist sentiment on either side, but I don't know how people felt about that, really, because we didn't have Reddit back then.
It's only populist if you don't count black people as people. It's only populist in that sense.
Well, yeah, correct. That's what we do.
Go ahead, skin it. Skin that smoke wagon and see what happens.
That's how they get you. They're under the goddamn ground.